Again, this is Paul Bessire, General Manager of PredictionMachine.com, and for the second video detailing the available information for the 2011 football season, we're going to look at what to do if a line at a book varies from the published line that we used for our picks. Now, the lines that we use for our picks are the consensus lines from over 30 books as of the time that the picks are published, but we will not rerun these games for every single line at every single book unless significant injury or roster changes force us to. That will be noted on the site as well as in emails as well if you're signed up for the pick availability alerts. But if the line just changes from book to book, which could vary greatly, or as the days leading up to the game, there are several ways in which you can accomplish the same type of thing as we tried to accomplish with this table. One of them is similar to what we had available for last year, and that is to take the Predictalator into your own hands and simulate this game. Clicking play, which we'll do in a second, next to any game will allow you to do that with that information. But if you want to go directly to what we call the Customizable Predictalator to run the game yourself, you can click on the Predictalator and use the Predictalator. I'll click play so that we can look directly at what happens in this Minnesota-Arizona game if that line changes significantly. You see now the Customizable Predictalator page, which is set up for the NFL and the Cardinals playing at Minnesota with -3.5 as the line and 47.5 as the over-under. New for this season, you'll be able to change the odds directly right here, so that information will pop up within the table itself, and you can evaluate money line plays. We're not going to get too much into that right now, but that is to determine, based on the odds available, how likely a team is to win straight up and whether or not that justifies a money line play. For the purposes of this example, though, let's just change one of these numbers, and let's say that now instead of being favored by 3.5 and covering 62.2% of the time over the number, the line is shifted all the way to 6. Now remember that Minnesota was about a 7-point favorite in our numbers before that, so when it plays the game 50,000 times, instead of being a 2 times normal play strong play, you now see that Minnesota at -6 and only winning by an average score of 7.3 points only covers the spread 54.1% of the time. In the previous example, for a $50 player, a 62.2% play would justify a $103 wager, but now at that same $50, a 54.1% play only justifies an $18 play. So this will give you the most accurate information for that line at that given time. New for this season, besides the ability just to change one game at one time and evaluate that, is something we've included to allow you to choose up to 16 different games within one sport and look at all of those at any given time. Not only is this great for those of you who want to know a few games and want to know how the numbers and the lines change and how that affects picks for just a few of our top plays, but also anybody who's interested in parlays or teasers, especially with teasers, since you're able to change the spread to any number that you want. But for an example purpose, we'll look at two different teams and evaluate parlays within those. I'm going to select 2 games. I'm not going to click Analyze Parlay yet because we'll do that in a second. Choose just 2 other teams that could play at some point. Baltimore and Cincinnati, for instance. We know Baltimore is going to be favored, so we'll at least set a line in that direction to see what happens. Let's say they're 9.5-point favorites. We won't change any of this other information now. We play the games, and in real time, it's now simulating both of these games and putting that information into the same table. So the straight-up analysis is here in the top table. Your against the spread plays are below that. We don't expect either team to score very many points, and obviously Baltimore wins by a considerable margin, but not quite enough with that low-scoring game to cover the 9.5 points. So you now see how those games evaluate, looking at them all at one time, where now Cincinnati is a stronger play, given that Minnesota at -6 was that line changed to a play that isn't very strong. Now, if we do this again, we allow it the ability to analyze a parlay, and we simulate both teams at one time. You can see that playing the game again might allow some of the numbers to change very small, and by very small amounts, especially in the points for, points against section. The percentages might change a little bit, but essentially you'll get the same information. And now you can select from those picks to determine how likely a parlay is that includes those plays. So, for instance, a 3-game parlay, 3-play parlay, with the Cincinnati Bengals plus 9.5, Minnesota at -6, and the under in the Cincinnati-Baltimore game, which came out very strong, would occur, all of those plays would hit 23.1% of the time according to our parlay success. Now, we're going to use a couple examples here, but typically a 3-game parlay will look at about plus 500 odds, so we'll start there and look at the play value calculation for a 23.1% likely play at plus 500. Clearly, since one of those was extremely strong, it is not only playable, which needs 16.7% to justify it, but also a pretty strong play that gets close to what would be considered a normal play. If for example, plus 600 is the line that you get, you can see that play would strengthen, by clicking on Calc, that play would strengthen to what would be essentially a normal play, given that you have two normal plays in there and one weak play that isn't all that weak. It's still obviously playable. If within this parlay, because of the odds dictated so, it was a plus 350 or so, clicking on Calc and evaluating that shows you they would barely be playable. Anything over 22.2% is playable at plus 350, but 23.1% wouldn't be very likely. So this is a way in which we've now allowed for easy analysis of parlays and teasers and evaluation of multiple games up to about 16 within each sport. To be able to see every single game and modify those lines as well within 1 week, we've added a play analyzer which we'll evaluate in the next video.